Welcome to the Data Room, where we share best practices and actionable tips on being a data-driven company, or as we call it, data first. If you're a B2B revenue leader looking to scale your growth stage business, come and join experienced CEO and tech founder Scott Stauffer in the Data Room. Hi everyone, welcome to the Data Room. I'm back here with Scale Matters CEO and co-founder Scott Stauffer. Today we are going to dive into the topic of revenue operations. It's a great topic on, what it is, its impact on early and growth stage B2B companies, and particularly why CEOs actually need to care about this function. The truth is, depending on your company size, stage, the term revenue operations, or what most people call RevOps, is going to mean different things to you. And, perhaps it doesn't even mean anything at all right now, but it's just like a business buzzword that's been floating around on LinkedIn. So I'm here with Scott and bringing him in. Scott, you're a 5-time CEO. You've been CEO of early and growth stage companies. So you kind of know what running a company was like before RevOps and now with RevOps. So how would you define the RevOps function and why it should matter to both early and growth stage CEOs?
Sure. So let's start with the why it matters. RevOps should matter because growth matters. There's a direct correlation between the maturity of a RevOps function in any given company and the effectiveness of its go-to-market engine. And if you think about it, the single biggest reason that growth stagnates or even never really begins is because companies fail to build an effective go-to-market engine. The investment firm OpenView recently came out with their 2021 financial operating and benchmarks report. Okay. And it actually showed that the number one thing that keeps early and growth stage CEOs up at night is go-to-market execution. So let's look at exactly what RevOps is and how it helps with that. And it'll become kind of obvious how strong RevOps is fundamental to having an effective go-to-market engine. First and foremost, RevOps is intentional. And by that, I mean it takes activities and approaches that you wish were happening sort of as a matter of course in your business and formalizes them with process, with expertise, with technology, and with accountability. So instead of just doing things, RevOps orchestrates doing those things in a cohesive manner that maximizes the output. Let's consider a couple examples. First example. At some point or another, virtually all businesses invest in sales and marketing technology with the goal of improving the productivity of their sales and marketing staff. This could be a CRM, a marketing automation platform, a sales acceleration tool, or any of the hundreds of other types of sales and marketing tech tools that exist today. But unfortunately, when most early and growth stage companies invest in these tools, the burden is left on the sales manager or the marketing leader to attempt to implement and manage these tools. And at the point that they basically feel like they're spending too much of their time wrangling with the technology, these early companies will often promote a junior person on staff to be responsible for the tech stack, or perhaps go outside and hire a low-level admin to do that job. In any case, it's very rare that the tech stack gets optimally built and put together. And often we refer to these a lot as Frankenstein tech stacks. They actually become an inhibitor to the growth because they make it more difficult for sales and marketing staff to do their jobs effectively. All the money that's spent on the tech stack is essentially wasted because it's not properly implemented. So one part of the RevOps function, which is very tactical, though important, is the part that brings expertise to bear that can architect, configure, and maintain the go-to-market tech stack in a way that truly does help accelerate the productivity of the sales and marketing staffs.
Okay. So you say this part of RevOps is pretty tactical, right? But it's clearly also important because if you think about it, those tech stack tools are actually impeding the effectiveness of what the sales and marketing teams are trying to do. That's not a really great thing. You talk about like wrangling technology. I know personally I've had the opportunity to experience some of those tools, firsthand as a user, and it's some sophisticated and complex technology that's out there for the many of sales and marketing tools available. And I know in other episodes we've often talked about how early and growth stage companies may not actually have that appropriate level of expertise on board to successfully manage their tech stack, right? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what type of expertise do you actually think is required to manage it?
Sure. So this is a tough one. So hiring the right level of RevOps tech stack admin expertise is quite challenging, and you might even say it's paradoxical for early and growth stage companies. So what do I mean by that? So most early stage companies who don't really appreciate the critical importance of this function will hire, as I said, or promote someone from inside into this role with limited experience because they're affordable. Let's say they're, 60 to 80K a year. These people tend to function as a jack of all tools, master of none. And that's a big problem for exactly the reason you said. This technology is sophisticated and it's complex, and you need people that have mastered it to put it together properly. Much larger companies that have what we'd call RevOps at scale will have people with specific expertise around single parts of the tech stack, as well as architects who effectively define and drive how all those pieces work together. So, for example, a $200 million business with maybe 200 sales reps might have 6 to 8 people in RevOps that are just dedicated to the administration of the technology itself. Obviously, that level of investment is out of reach for most early and growth stage companies. So what these early companies need to do, if they insist on building RevOps in-house, is they're going to need to find a jack of all tools, master of all tools. And these folks have developed these skills because they've been working in the function for probably close to 10 years and across all parts of the go-to-market tech stack. They're rare, they're hard to find, and they're expensive, probably, 150K plus or minus per year. But they're really worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like those people are almost a diamond in the rough because or not even a diamond in the rough, like a needle in a haystack, right? These types of people are rapidly being recognized as like the key enabler of effective go-to-market motions. So I definitely think the demand for really, like what you say, jack of all tools, master of all tools is skyrocketing. And I want to go back to what you said earlier about properly managing that tech stack, because you noted that it was tactical but critically important. So is there a part of RevOps that you view as more of a strategic asset?
Oh, absolutely. That's very simple. Data and insights.
Okay.
So nobody starts their company and on day one has a perfectly optimized go-to-market engine. In fact, most companies never even achieve a reasonably effective go-to-market engine, which is why so many early-stage companies stagnate or worse, they fail outright. Getting to an effective go-to-market engine is a process of iterating. Essentially, we start off on one path that we think will work, and when it doesn't work as well as we expected, we move down some different path, hopefully chosen based on things we learned in our initial experience. This process of iteration is quickest and most efficient when revenue leaders are supported with reliable data and insights. It allows them to iterate with almost surgical precision, ensuring that each successive iteration moves the business closer, or each path that they go on successively moves the business closer to an optimized state. The problem with early and growth stage companies is that their go-to-market data foundation is just notoriously weak. Early and growth stage companies are just very bad at this. In many cases, the revenue leaders essentially have no data to base their decisions on, so they're winging it, and they have to rely solely on intuition. And if you think about it, at many early stage companies, the revenue leaders themselves are not very seasoned executives, so relying on their intuition can be a very risky proposition. But even worse than that is when the revenue leaders think they have some decent data, but they don't, and then they make bad decisions based off bad data. In any case, this immature go-to-market data foundation makes it very difficult for companies to go through this process of iteration in a timely and efficient manner. And therefore, they find themselves running out of cash runway before the go-to-market engine's really humming. The reason this situation exists is because without a dedicated RevOps function, nobody uniquely owns the responsibility for producing high-integrity go-to-market data and insights that ultimately will help the revenue leaders to more quickly optimize their go-to-market effectiveness. And quite often, nobody in these early-stage companies actually has the expertise that's required to design a proper data model, establish data integrity mechanisms, and analyze the data in a way that can surface high-impact, actionable insights. So more than anything else, it is this responsibility of uniquely owning the go-to-market data and insights that makes RevOps a strategic asset that underlies a company's success.
Okay, so data, insights, critically important. Without either data or useful data or insights, it's going to take likely companies much longer to optimize their go-to-market engine, right? So to me, I think this sounds as if it even requires a different type of expertise than that tech stack administration expertise that we just talked about earlier. Do you agree with that, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Spot on. People who are great at data analysis and operations tend to be very analytical people. They almost have like this natural ability to identify patterns and numbers. And people who do this within the go-to-market function also have a very nuanced understanding of the go-to-market motion across the entire funnel, from leads to deals. So when you combine this pattern matching skills with deep understanding of the go-to-market motion, you get people who can actually see actionable insights out of data where others simply see numbers. You don't typically find these skills in the same people who are masters at manipulating the technology. And that's why at larger companies, there are data operations and business analysis groups that are distinctly different than the technology operations groups, though all are still part of the RevOps function.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. You've spoken about these like two aspects of RevOps, and you made it clear, they're both important to establishing this effective go-to-market engine that is what everybody's going after. Are there any other kind of RevOps functions that are worth mentioning in this conversation?
Well, getting the tech stack right and the go-to-market data and insights right are by far the most important benefits of RevOps for early and growth stage companies. But there are other areas where a dedicated RevOps function dramatically improves activities through intentionality, as I mentioned before, that maybe these activities would be otherwise performed poorly because no one uniquely is accountable for them. It could be things like the process of onboarding and ramping a sales team or SDR personnel. We often find that in a RevOps function under the term enablement. It could be building forward-looking new bookings plans and associated resource capacity plans, and optimizing comp plans, if you will, to best align with corporate goals. Sure. In larger organizations, all of those functions, there are people who are dedicated to them that generally reside within the RevOps domain, if you will. But again, for early stage early growth, the primary thing is putting the tech stack together right and maintaining it properly, and then building the data foundation, the go-to-market data foundation, so people can rapidly iterate. One other important point to make, though, about RevOps, we talked earlier about owning the go-to-market data and insights. And one of the uses of this data is to identify friction in the go-to-market engine. There also tends to be a cultural friction, if you will, which is caused by the misalignment of sales and marketing organizations in most early and growth stage businesses. And that misalignment is made worse when sales is allowed to build their own kind of sales ops function and marketing is allowed to build their own marketing ops function. RevOps is focused on the customer and focused on the associated revenue and tends to be agnostic to internal functional departments. So one of the collateral benefits of a dedicated RevOps function is that it largely eliminates the friction caused by sales and marketing misalignment. So I guess at a high level, I'd say you could think of RevOps as the function that brings accountability and expertise to the back office required to have an effective go-to-market engine.
Yeah. It sounds like from what you said, from an operational perspective, right? Having a RevOps function enables you to manage more proactively. It enables revenue leaders to focus on what they're good at. It enables the C-suite to make better decisions, right? Ultimately, it's about revenue growth. And I know in our last episode of the Data Room with Dan Quirk, we discussed a CEO that basically said, I don't even care about revenue operations. I care about revenue growth. So the last question I have for you on today's episode, if you had to describe the top ways that revenue operations actually drives revenue growth, what would you say?
I mean, there's a ton. There's probably, 20 or more tangible ways that RevOps enables faster revenue growth. But I'd say the top ones that jump to mind, the ways that I see properly functioning RevOps impacting revenue growth, and specifically for early and growth stage companies. Right. First, and I've already alluded to this, properly configuring the tech stack and maintaining it so that it's easy to use and not cumbersome for end users, and just sort of taking all of the plumbing and the data cobbling off of the hands of the revenue leaders. It effectively means that you're creating a environment for the sales and marketing staff to work in that is highly efficient because you've put all these tools for automation together in a proper fashion. So salespeople spend more time selling, sales leaders spend a lot more time helping the sales people to sell. Secondly, surface data first at the earliest stage to help product market fit, message fit, and positioning. This is data around knowing which segments have the highest sales velocity, but also using sales call recording data to extract things that prospects say. Things like what their priorities are, what they're worried about, what they're currently doing. Basically, we refer to this a lot as voice of prospect data, but it's data that helps you tune your product marketing fit and your message or language fit to better map against what the market will resonate with, which when you get that dialed in, it really helps to reduce a lot of friction in the process. Talking about friction, I'd say the third major way that RevOps helps the early and growth stage companies is helping to identify and remove waste. This process of iterating in go-to-market by definition means there's going to be waste because you're going to do some things that don't necessarily pan out. And the companies that are best at this are the ones that kind of can quickly identify where there's friction, where there's waste, and move away from that. So they end up being a lot more efficient with their sales and marketing investments and get to a more optimized state quickly. Similarly, just removing friction throughout the entire process, and that can show up in so many different ways. You could have friction in a lead distribution mechanism and the way that leads get handed out to various salespeople that causes stuff not to get picked up in a timely manner. You could have friction around the way your demo request form on your website is structured, such that people come to that form and then for some reason they are reluctant to complete it and submit it. So again, RevOps for early stage companies can be very powerful in sort of surfacing these areas where there's friction and waste that happen, which ultimately reduces conversion throughout the process. So the goal is to drive a more effective go-to-market engine, drive a more efficient go-to-market engine, and RevOps can, I'm not going to say it can help, it's essential in order to get there for early and growth stage companies.
Yeah, I think if you are an early or growth stage CEO listening to this, kind of wondering what RevOps is, hopefully this helped covered exactly why it's really important and why it's critically important if you're really wanting to build a go-to-market engine that's effective. And I think all businesses do. So I think if you're thinking about revenue operations, haven't really invested in it, trying to dive into more about how you can fit it into your business, I would recommend first figuring out where you're strong and where you're weak in your current kind of setup and whether you have a RevOps team or not. And we can help with that. So sign up for our complimentary maturity assessment at scalematters.com/assessment. Again, scalematters.com/assessment. We can help identify those strong and weak points that you can improve on. And yeah, this is a great conversation, Scott. Thank you so much. Until next time, we'll see you in the data room.
Thanks, Heather.